Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we are going to be continuing on with our C# tutorial series, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about .NET and what it can do for us. So .NET is the building block for all Windows applications, for all C# applications, for all Visual Basic and F# applications. Basically anything for Microsoft platforms, generally speaking. .NET is basically the foundation. It is also the foundation for web applications using Microsoft technologies. So if you're building an ASP.NET application, as the name implies, it uses .NET as its building block, or as its foundation, right? And so .NET is fundamental to being able to program in C#, like we're going to do in this tutorial series. So you're going to want to make sure that you actually have .NET installed on your computer. Typically, Windows comes built in with the .NET framework, and that is the older version of .NET that has been used historically over the years. And it's still used in some capacity. It's still used in many, and I mean many, Windows components. So Windows cannot run without .NET Framework. That's why it comes with it. However, for modern applications, you are going to want to have what's called .NET Core or .NET. .NET Core is what came after .NET Framework 4.8, which is the last version of .NET Framework. .NET Core is open source and cross-platform, so anything written with .NET Core or just .NET can run on Windows, Mac, and Linux platforms. So the reason I say .NET Core or .NET is because after .NET Core 3.1, I believe it was, they switched over to just .NET. And the reason for that is because in the beginning of .NET Core, the numbering was getting confused a lot with .NET Framework. So they had to put Core on it so people wouldn't get as confused. But as they got to 3.1, they thought, okay, well, we could do .NET Core 4 and keep the Core moniker, or we can skip .NET 4 or .NET Core 4 altogether and just go to 5. And that's what they ultimately did. They went from .NET Core 3.1 to .NET 5. So now they're when you're talking .NET 5, .NET 6, .NET 7, people automatically will know, or at least developers will know, oh, you're talking about .NET Core, okay. Because there isn't any .NET Framework 5 or 6 or 7. It stopped at 4.8. So that's kind of the general history of .NET, kind of a short form version of it. Right now, the official release for .NET 7 is .NET 7. This is the standard term support, so this only lasts, I believe it's 18 months of standard is a standard term support, and then the long term support, which is currently .NET 6, I believe is a 3-year support window. Right now they are working on .NET 8. It's in preview, and .NET 8 will be the next long-term support version. So then .NET 9 will be the standard term support. .NET 10 will be the long-term support, and so on and so forth. So the release cycle and support cycle is pretty predictable at this point. But we're on .NET 7, and that's what we will be using throughout this series. It should work just fine in later versions of .NET, unless something changes, which generally speaking, there isn't a whole lot of like breaking changes. There's for C# itself, for things like ASP.NET Core, there will be some breaking changes every now and again, but again, not very often. In a later series, we will talk about .NET Core in regards to ASP. We'll be building web applications with Microsoft technologies in a later series, but for now, we're just focused on C#. So, one thing you will need is, if you're on Linux, you will need the .NET SDK. So if you go to .net.microsoft.com and go to the downloads link, you'll find this page. So you can download the latest version of the .NET SDK for Linux. And then that way you can have what are called the .NET command line tools, the .NET CLI, and that's what you will be using to create your projects. And your solutions and all that stuff. In the next video, when we talk about setting up your C# project for the series, I will go through how to create a project with the .NET CLI so you can get started. So, with that being said, that pretty much does it really for .NET. Just keep in mind, if you're on Windows or Mac, you don't need to download the .NET SDK unless you don't want to download Visual Studio, in which case you can just download the .NET SDK and you will have those command line tools available to you. Because let's say you're on a slower computer. You're on an older, slower computer, but you want to get into C#. Then using something like Visual Studio Code probably might be best for you because your computer may struggle with Visual Studio. So you can download the .NET SDK and then use Visual Studio on Windows or Mac, and that's perfectly fine. That's why they have downloads for that. As well as if you want to just have the latest version of the SDK for Visual Studio to discover and allow you to use in Visual Studio. So, again, that pretty much does it for .NET. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video where we will actually set up our C# project.